it should be obvious to you by now, if you're checking into a video like this, that your placement of the mouthpiece on the neck doesn't exactly define how well you can play a saxophone in tune. All right, so let's get to it. Three different types of intonation that we need to be very, very concerned with if we want to play our instrument in tune. And yes, I am growing my fro out. All right, so let's get to it. I'm gonna simplify this by referring to this type of tuning as piano tuning. How we tune up to the piano and the way a professional piano tuner tunes a piano. What you really want to think about when you think about piano tuning is keeping the octaves in tune throughout the entire range of the piano. If a piano is only keeping the octaves in tune for maximum beat reduction, that inherently means all the other intervals are either sharp or flat relative to maximum beat reduction. All right, so with piano tuning, we are essentially matching our note to the standard by which the piano plays its notes. The problem is the chords, the notes themselves aren't in tune. They've been adjusted so that all the keys basically sound the same. Well, what does that mean? That can be a little bit confusing. That means that certain intervals, when you play them on piano, won't sound in tune to our ear, which will bring me to the next form of intonation that we need to be concerned with, which is maximum beat reduction tuning. So you wind up with, all right, so if we wanted to play those two notes in tune, we essentially have to stop those beats. That boom. Until we stop hearing those pulses. Those pulses are called beats. So this maximum beat reduction tuning is what we, as any kind of musician, defaults to. The problem is when you do that, as you build the chords up, it starts to go out of tune relative to the notes that are at the bottom. So in short, there's no such thing as perfect intonation. There's always some type of adjustment that's making things fit in such a way that we sound like we're in tune. There is a limit to what the human ear can detect as far as a pulse. That pulse might be 1 pulse per second, like a whoa, 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 whoa. But if that pulse takes 1 pulse per minute, or 1 pulse per day, 1 pulse per year, that is far beyond the human ability to be able to detect that level of out of tune. Take a listen and see if you can hear this phase shift in intonation. All right, so the third one I want to talk to you about has to do with the saxophone itself. I like to call this virtual tuning. So if I'm just playing the saxophone by itself, then I have in my mind an idea of where all the notes are supposed to be. All right, so this kind of virtual framework of where I'm placing notes. This third one, no one talks about. That third one, no one really knows about. The problem is certain notes on the saxophone will just resonate better, and chances are those notes are not in tune. So we have to make those types of adjustments and be very aware of them. The one that we generally default to the most is going to be maximum beat reduction tuning. And with the intervals, there is a hierarchy of intervals that have to be more in tune than other intervals before our ear starts to notice that something funky is going on. All right, so first and foremost, unisons. Unison have to be absolutely, positively in tune. And just a hair below that are octaves. And then we have fourths and fifths. Then we have thirds and sixths. Then we have seconds, sevenths, and you can even throw tritones right in there also. Also want to show you guys this on my tenor, because my soprano does not have a guard on the low C or the low E flat. But if you look here on this low E flat key, you can see this bumper that's right here. So if this key is opening up too far, I can put like a little pad or a little cushion right there, so that way it doesn't open up that far. Or if it's not opening up far enough, I can easily fix that note by adjusting this. This tenor actually comes with a screw that's right there, so you can adjust that size. It's also like that on the low C. This is a very nice feature that I found on Cannonball saxophones. I also have it on the low B and the low B flat. So these are some things that you need to take into consideration if you're having consistent problems with very specific notes on your saxophone. Let's take a look at my soprano saxophone here, ladies and gentlemen. You can see how the cork and the green felt are very even on this saxophone. This is going to have a huge effect on the way these keys are lined up. As you can see, they are very even also. If I turn this over, we can take a look at the pads, and we can see how even the pads are on this instrument also. Let's take a look at the side keys here. We have the side B flat, the side C, and the side E, and you can see how even those are also. This is another thing that'll be very important for playing those notes in tune. Also, look at the high G and the high F sharp key, how even those are. And also down here, we can see our low B flat and low B natural, how even those are. And we can also take a look at the pads, and we can see how even those are also. Very good horn from the factory. Another big issue that you get with horns like this is having the left hand keys not being even. You can see how even those are, and then under there, the pads are also very even as well. Also taking a look at the palm key notes. If one of those pads is too thick, it's going to affect what is already a difficult part of the horn to play. This instrument wasn't perfect from the factory when I got it. The thumb key, the octave key, was just a little too tight. So my repairman loosened it up, gave it a good once over, and then I was good to go. You will also notice right here with this front F key, there's this screw that's here that will allow you to be able to adjust how far that palm F key opens. This is much more of an advanced kind of thing. I talk about that in my tenor videos where I talk about playing G for Altissimo. This is a very nice feature. A lot of older horns didn't have that type of adjustability with them. These are very beginner saxophone intonation kinds of problems. As far as understanding the tendency of intonation, numbers 1, 2, and 3 that I talked about at the start, this is something that's much more for the intermediate and above type of players. Alright, so let me get my tenor out, and I'm going to go over some other things that you guys need to be aware of. Alright, let's continue. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so let's take a look at this tuner that I have here. And up in the top left corner, it says temperament equal, or piano tuning, as I just stated. You can also adjust this to just, but we're not going to do that, and I would advise you not to do that either. So you play a note. I'm going to choose a concert A, 220. And if you see that little number that's next to it there, it's actually telling you a more exact description of how in tune you are. But you get your smiley face and you're in tune, right? No. Intonation is relative to who you are playing with. So a tool like this is really good at just giving you a guideline. What you really want to do in order to play in tune is to teach yourself maximum beat reduction. That's eliminating the most amount of pulses within any two pitches. You should only really be using a tuner to get in the ballpark. And then from there, we're going to use maximum beat reduction tuning. So here's how you practice this. And once you give this some time, it's only going to take you a couple of weeks of doing this 5 to 10 minutes a day every time you practice. So what you want to do is set your tuner to a concert whatever. Set it to whatever note you want. I'm going to set it to concert A. I'm going to play various notes relative to concert A, and I'm going to pitch them a little bit high and a little bit low, so that way you can get an idea for what maximum beat reduction sounds like. So when you practice, set a tone to whatever note you want, and then experiment playing intervals, either sharp or flat, to minimize all these beats. And then you can zero in on the maximum beat reduction. So take a listen to this. I'm going to deliberately play this out of tune, and you'll be able to hear when I get to the interval of a perfect fifth at the end, how it almost sounds like vibrato when it goes out of tune. All right, check this out. So just like the hierarchy of intervals that must be in tune, there is a hierarchy of instruments. All right, so ultimately you want to play the most in tune, like the instrument that is the most like yours. So if you're just playing with piano, obviously the piano is the instrument that is the most like your own. However, there are some exceptions to this. Like if I'm playing with another instrument like a flute and piano. Now the flute is the instrument that is the most like the one that I'm playing. However, if I'm playing in unison or in octaves with the piano, now my intonation needs to be in line with the piano, because hearing those octaves in unison out of tune is really going to stand out more than anything I'm doing with the flute or that other instrument that's similar to mine. Same thing with if I'm playing with an alto sax player and I'm playing tenor, and let's say there's a trumpet that's there. Now obviously the alto is the instrument that is the most like my own. However, if I'm playing in unison and in octaves with the trumpet, then I need to be more in tune with the trumpet than I need to with the alto. So it all still falls under that regime of interval intonation hierarchy. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so as you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, I have an arbitrary piece of music, and I'm setting this up as an example for the other way that you need to be able to practice playing in tune. And so many people don't do this. It is absolutely shameful. So as you can see, there's just a couple of D's, an A, and a B flat there. I'm not even going to transpose it or anything like that. And I want to make sure that you can see this tuner thing right here. So what you want to do whenever you're practicing intonation is do not cheat. Do not let this thing dictate your ego. What you want to do is take a piece of music and then play it and then stop on a note. It's important that you pick a piece of music because when you're playing, that's how you're going to approach that note. That's how you've gotten used to hearing that note. So I'm going to play this. As you can see, I normally, whenever I play a phrase like that and I get to that high B flat, I am generally pitching it a little bit under. So now I know that whenever I come to a B flat like that, from the bottom up, I have a tendency to pitch that note low. Let's check out this G that's on the end here. That one seems to be really good. You can do this with any piece of music. Just make sure that you don't cheat. Make sure you have a piece of music, something that you're very familiar with. Pick an arbitrary note, stop, and then look. Don't just be looking at the tuner, because if you just look at this tuner and you do this, you will always play with that thing in the middle. And I'm telling you right now, if you're playing with that thing in the middle all the time, you are the one that's out of tune, unless you're playing with a piano. All right, so let's move on. The tendency of the saxophone is to play the bottom part of the horn sharp and the upper part of the horn flat. Now, for this example, I'm going to exclude the use of the octave key. If you play a scale and you use the palm keys instead of using the octave key with the D, you get something that sounds disastrously out of tune. So I'm going to play for you an F major scale, but I'm going to use the palm keys instead of the octave key with the normal way that we play it. Okay, here's an F sharp because I have a high F sharp key on my saxophone. Here's an F sharp major scale using the palm keys. Here's the right way. Yeah, because we don't play saxophone like that, once we get to the C sharp, then we use our octave key, and then we go to the middle D. And this is where the sequence starts all over again. And it's also why your middle D, D sharp, E, and F run sharp. And then it starts to balance itself out again. And then once you get to the palm keys, it actually goes flat again. Not that flat, but the natural tendency for the saxophone player is to overcompensate in the palm key area because we're so used to tightening our embouchure that a lot of guys actually tend to play the palm keys sharp. All right, so just be aware of these kinds of things. All right, so let me show you some alternate fingerings for what are disastrously bad notes on a saxophone. Okay, so here's an alternate fingering for your open C sharp, which is notoriously flat on every saxophone. So you just play your octave key and your G key. This G key deactivates this octave mechanism so you don't hit the higher note. So listen to the difference between the two C sharps. Sometimes I like to add some of the keys in the right hand just to really dial in the pitch. Okay, another one that can be low is the low A. I like to add the G sharp key to that note to raise the pitch. The A above that, there's a really subtle thing you can do on tenor, more so than on alto. But if I play the high A and I add this low C key, it changes the pitch in this subtle way. So here's another thing that works better on tenor than it does on alto. I think alto is a more balanced instrument. But on tenor, pretty much on any saxophone, your middle F sharp should have this really nice resonant tone to it. To my ear, it is the most resonant note on the saxophone. I know you have low B flat, but whenever I hear this middle F sharp, that thing just rings and pop out, and I can very easily identify that note. So I'm going to show you an alternate fingering, which is the 6 key instead of the 5. Whenever I hold this note out longer than a half note, I use this fingering here. Now it's a little bit unstable and you have to adjust your embouchure, but I'll play the 2 and see if you can hear the difference. You can hear how the 6 is a little bit higher. Here's an alternate fingering for your middle D. It's just like C natural, but then you add the E flat key, what I like to call -2. All right, so because a saxophone is a single reed instrument, because of this design, we have a lot more flat that we can adjust the pitch to than we do sharp. Clarinet is way worse. So in order for us to play the saxophone in tune, we need to be able to tune the instrument just a little bit on the sharp side, so that way we can center the pitch with our embouchure. So that way, if we need to raise the pitch of something, we're not stuck with having to use a whole bunch of alternate fingerings. We can just use our embouchure and then play in that tighter embouchure set in order to keep that pitch centered. Remember, we want to tune it a little bit sharp to play it in the middle. If you're playing your B natural, you can add the side B flat to raise that note a little bit. Right? So if you're playing your G, you can add the side F sharp. It's very, very subtle difference, but it's there. G sharp. Tuning up your instrument and putting it in the middle just simply gets you in the ballpark. Once you're in the ballpark, once that ball gets moving, everybody needs to move into position in order to accomplish their goal. So once you actually start playing with people, everybody needs to adjust their pitch slightly in order to make everything fit in tune to where your ear isn't noticing all these beats and pulses going on. That's all I got for you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this video was very helpful to you. Feel free to like, subscribe, share this video with all your friends. All right, see ya.